I'm here at Studio Theater with actors John Epperson and James Lecesne, who are starring in Legends. Hey, so thanks for being here. How are you both doing?
Good.
Fine. James just got off the train.
Where were you?
New York.
So I hear you have an extension today. Through when?
Through Sunday, July 11th. And I think that will be the end of this particular production of the play.
So they better hurry up and get their tickets.
Yes.
So let's talk about what Legends is about from your two characters, and tell us who you play and try to answer that crazy question.
Shall I go first?
You go first.
I play a woman named Leatrice Monsee, who had been a big movie star in the 60s, playing nuns and nurses and saints. And although she has a Goody Two-Shoes image, like Julie Andrews or Debbie Reynolds, she actually isn't a Goody Two-Shoes at all, like Julie Andrews and Debbie Reynolds. And she is old enemies with Sylvia Glenn, played by James Lecesne, who will now explain his character.
Yeah, so I play Sylvia Glenn, who is a sort of, probably originally based on somebody like Betty Davis or somebody like that, who sort of played a lot of tramps and, kind of rougher characters. And, is sort of outspoken and a little bit bawdy and Elizabeth Taylor-ish, and Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf. And, they're nemesis of each other, Sylvia and Leatrice. And so the play is about them coming together and Sylvia trying to convince Leatrice to do a play on Broadway.
So how do you
Because they're both broke.
Say that again.
Both of the characters are broke and they need to work. And Sylvia knows that if the two of them can actually appear in public together, that the public will want to see them because everyone knows how much they hate each other.
Okay, so how do you relate to these characters? How much of them are your personality?
We're both broke. We're actors.
Well, I guess first of all I should say that the play was originally written by James Kirkwood,
who wrote Chorus Line,
who was one of the writers of A Chorus Line,
right.
And he wrote several novels and other plays. And the estate allowed me to rewrite the play for this version and update it, and I added things and I took things out. And
like an act break.
Yeah, there's no intermission.
It only runs for 90 minutes, which is great, which is about as long as it should run, really.
And if you ever saw any other productions, they probably were about 2 hours and 15 minutes with an intermission.
Well, we did suffer through that one at National Theater a couple of years ago with the Legends girls.
Apparently they would not let them change any of the text for that production. But for this production, the text is completely changed. So at one point, I wrote, Sylvia says to Aretha about Leatrice, the woman's dysfunctional. Well, I was really writing about myself. I see myself as dysfunctional, so I do relate to Leatrice. James is very extroverted and I am not. So.
I'm a tramp, is what he's trying to say. So that's why I relate to Sylvia Glenn.
I didn't say that. I think people are surprised by how gloomy I can be. And Leatrice isn't gloomy, although if she might be gloomy, but she covers it up with a facade of everything's just wonderful. I'm not like that at all. I just tell everyone everything is terrible.
So how long have you been working on this now?
Well, the first time I did a reading of this play was in 2000 at Sag Harbor, New York. And that was 10 years ago. But it was about, when was it? November of 2008, I think.
When you did with Charles Bush?
No, in November of 2008, I made the decision to sit down and do a rewrite.
Okay.
And then I submitted it to the agent for the estate. And then in March of 2009 was when Charles and I did the one-night reading. But the script has changed a lot since that night. Because
that was one of my questions. What's changed since then?
Since March 2009.
Me!
Besides James,
you should tell him he's got black Nail polish.
Well, there's a complicated reason he's wearing black nail polish.
Too boring to talk about. It's vernice. It's not black.
Oh,
it's
sorry.
vernice.
Anybody we know vernice? Well, the intermission has been removed since that benefit in 2009, and the whole character, there's a policeman character who
took out the cop, huh?
Took out the sexy cop. It was unfortunate to lose the sexy cop.
So why did you take him off his beat, as they say?
To make the evening shorter, I went to see God of Carnage, which is only about 95 minutes long, and I thought, that's what the public wants. They don't want us to an hour and 15-minute show. They just don't. The public has a short attention span now, and they want to get in and they want to get out.
Yep, you agree?
You know, I think certain pieces require shorter runs. You know, I don't think everything should be 90 minutes, but I think that some things can really only sustain 90 minutes, you know? And, you know, this play is, you know, it's very entertaining. It's a lot of fun.
So how did Legends land up here at studio?
Legends got here because I've been here 3 times before. 4 if you count the gala performance I did here in February.
Right.
Where I impersonated Joy Zinnemann. Or I should say Lypsinka impersonated Joy Zinnemann.
God. Did they ever videotape that?
They didn't videotape it, and only a few people saw it because it was the night of the first big snowstorm in the winter.
I remember. Oh boy. So sorry.
They had not a house full, but there were supposed to be 2 performances that night, and they only did 1 because people couldn't get here. I mean, it was a real blizzard.
Well, how did you get involved with this production?
They called me up and asked me to be, if I was interested in doing it. And
when was that?
Maybe a few months ago. And, you know, John, of course, is legendary. So the opportunity to work with John was part of it. And also to work here at Studio Theater, which I'd heard a lot about. And, you know, I'd heard some very good things about this theater, and I thought it was an interesting combination. And, you know, I'd known about the play. I knew that it existed, and I remember when it had happened originally, and, you know, how bizarre it was. Just the stories, mostly. I'd never read the play, but I remember the stories that came out around that time.
The behind-the-scenes stories.
Yeah, and they were published in the New York Times in the Arts and Leisure section when I was, you know, growing up. And I don't know. I always remembered that in particular that story about Mary Martin picking up the taxi dispatches in her ear thing. They put a little bug in her ear to feed her the lines, and she started picking up the taxi dispatches in Houston, which I always found hilarious. And that was like way before anybody was doing that on a regular basis. That was, you know.
I mean, did you consider putting that in the rewrite? That would have been fun.
No, I don't think there's any way to do that. I suppose that they've mastered that technology because Angela Lansbury admits that she wears, well, for Blithe Spirit, which she had a pretty big role, she was wearing an earpiece. And there was someone offstage feeding her lines to her, but I guess they weren't picking up taxi signals.
Well, I think the technology has probably improved since the days of Mary Martin. But
Right.
I was intrigued, and you know, I like a challenge, and you know.
So what's it like for each other to work with each other? Any Carol or you know, merry moments here?
No, I don't think so.
No, I think we have a lot of respect for each other. It seems. Well, I have for you, John, darling. I can't speak for you, but you know, and you know, the director, Kirk Jackson, he was wonderful in being able to, I think, negotiate a lot of different worlds. I mean, there's the world of the, you know, the maid and the Martin Klemmer, the producer, and, you know, each one of us have such a different style in a way. You know, it's so different. And to bring all those different styles into one play, not just, you know, the different characters, but I think the different acting styles that we all have, we all kind of approach it differently.
So let's talk about running around Dan Conway's set, because it doesn't look too easy maneuvering that thing.
Oh, it's actually very easy.
Really?
Yeah.
Someone has said to me that they're so afraid that we're going to fall off the stage, but it doesn't feel that way to us. I guess it looks that way.
It looks that way. That's why I asked it. I was
Really? In what way?
I know there were a couple of times when people were running around, I'm thinking, oh my God, they're so close to the edge there.
Oh.
So
It's sort of funny. It feels like my living room now. I mean, you work on... The other thing is we rehearsed on that set. Usually you rehearse in a rehearsal room that's kind of taped out on the floor. And we actually got to work on that set from the very, very beginning, before the walls were up and everything.
That was smart.
Yeah.
But that's a Kirk thing. He's a smart guy.
Yeah, and I think it was a necessity also in terms of just we had such a limited time to rehearse it.
So what was
there was nothing else was going on in the theater, and so
we're lucky.
We could just do it. Yeah, we were.
Talk
lucky.
about working with Kirk Jackson. What's some of the really good advice he gave you about playing your roles?
Well, there's a difficult scene that I have. The play is so silly. It's really just a boulevard farce. But the way James Kirkwood wrote it to give it some substance is that towards the end, the two women start talking about their health problems. And I have what in the original was a very long speech about breast cancer. And it wouldn't do for two men to be talking about breast cancer, so I changed it to osteoporosis, which we get some Sally Field jokes out of. But it still has to have a bit of seriousness to it, but it shouldn't stick around for very long. And so he and I had to really dig into that scene and figure out how to make it, well, what one reviewer called, noted that the play does have moments of warmth and poignancy. It's not just campiness and cattiness all the way through. And so Kirk was really helpful analyzing that scene for me. So that's one thing he did really good. Also, Kirk, by his own admission, is very good at staging. And the more I do the play, the more I can see that, and I see how he's managed to make with only 5 actors and 2 sets, keep the play moving, and it has different scenes and different moments and different looks all the way through. Joy is a very good costume person, and they have here what they call a costume parade, and she comes and looks at every little thing on the costumes. And it was at that moment that we got James a new wig, which I was very happy about.
What was the first wig like?
It was my own hair.
Really?
No. Joy said I look like Elaine Kagels, the Supreme Court nominee.
I was having a tough day today. I'm Joel, and her confirmation here.
Oh, that was today?
Yeah, yesterday too.
Oh,
what can you do?
She might need my wig.
So what's the most difficult scene for you to play?
Scene?
Yeah.
I don't know. The ones that I'm not in. I can't stand
Which
being
are
off
very
stage.
few. He's on.
know
It's
you're on,
a
like, the whole-
huge part for James. He's on stage almost the whole time.
I don't. It doesn't really. I don't mean to be, but
No, it's okay to say it. It's fine.
I think the scene you rehearsed the most was the very first scene, because there were so many props and all that business
just this
going in and
whole-
out the doors. And
the whole play is just like a prop nightmare. It's just so many props and costumes and wigs and stuff like that, which is a challenge. And for any actor to be able to kind of stay in the play while you're dealing with all that equipment. But I don't know. I think it's all a challenge, and it's sort of all equal. All the difficulties are kind of interesting to me.
So what's the best advice Kirk gave you on your character, playing your character?
It's funny. I can't remember him actually talking about characters so much. But what he was very good with is how to get a laugh, which I appreciate. He's a very he's a worker in terms of being able to work a joke to be able to get a laugh, which it makes me crazy if there's a joke and it's not landing, that there are many ways you can sort of tweak it to be able to find a way, and I love doing that. I just love it.
there are some directors who sit back and say, oh, I don't think that's working, try something different. But Kirk isn't like that. He'd jump on the stage and he's very hyper.
And also, I think because he's an actor, he actually knows how to be able to deliver certain things that maybe never occurred to you, you know? But in terms of character, I don't think he sort of left that up to us in a way, to be able to, that's what, you know, actors do. They bring that to the table. The rest of it's, you know, the mechanics.
Well, you know, Vincent Minnelli never talked to actors about character. He just entrusted it to them. And I don't think Alfred Hitchcock talked very much to actors about character either. He said, I hired you, you know, you know how to do your job, and you'll do it.
Yep.
And I hear Joy doesn't either.
Oh, no?
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about the rest of the cast.
Roz White is the greatest thing ever.
I know,
ever.
I'm one of her biggest fans.
She's amazing. She's an amazing performer.
What'd you do to her with the way you wrote that part? I've never seen her do this before. She's always in these shows. She's done a lot of work at Metro Stage, where they have a lot of shows, and she plays characters who are suffering horribly. And here she is, out there having a blast.
Yeah,
so.
she's such a wonderful actress.
She is.
Incredible timing.
She gives an anchor to the show, because James and I are like two mosquitoes flitting around.
Hey.
And she's the anchor. She's got the gravitas. I never said it. The only thing I ever said to Roz was that this play was written for two Caucasian stars who ended up in the first production being Mary Martin and Carol Channing. And I said, when I did my rewrite, I thought, why can't the housekeeper be a legend also? So it's not two legends, it's three legends. And it's not just that the role of Aretha is the housekeeper, but the actress playing the role.
You gave her some R-E-S-P-E-C-T, as they say.
I guess.
Yeah.
But it just seemed like
She
the right
came
thing
with
to
a
do.
lot. She came with a lot of that too.
She's spunky. But
And
she's
smart.
And smart.
She's very smart, and Joy is crazy about Roz, but Roz hasn't worked here in about 20 years. I
She
think.
won the Helen Hazer last time, I think, for Blues in the Night. So she's a great talent. And I was so glad to see you picked her to play that role.
And now you're losing her. She's moving to New York.
I know. But she'll be back.
She will still have her ties here, of course.
Yes, she will. So, you know, after I was there on press
In the
performances.
afternoon. That was a
In the
great
afternoon.
audience, by the way.
Wow, you had everybody in the neighborhood there, and that was great. You had the right kind of audience for that performance. And two guys came out and said, I didn't know Lypsinka spoke. So you want to make a comment about that to them? Respond to them?
You know, we probably should have marketed the show as Lypsinka Talks for the first time in D.C., because I have done that in New York, but I had never done it here. And people are surprised that I can talk, because I did make my name lip-syncing. It's true.
And you get a little chance on the show to do that.
And I do a little bit of lip-syncing, 1 minute and 9 seconds to be exact. But I began to realize after my career took off that not only is drag a trap, but lip-syncing is a trap inside the trap. And one of the things I've been trying to do is to sort of re-educate the public, market the show as starring Lypsinka, but Lypsinka doesn't necessarily have to lip-sync the whole show. And it seems to be working.
Absolutely. The reviews were just stunning.
I was afraid I was going to lose my voice because it's been so long since
Really?
I've been in a speaking show. But the acoustics in that room are so good, it seems to be fine.
So how are you keeping up your energy to do this? Any secrets you care to share?
Well, I go to bed as early as possible because I like to wake up with the sun. Last night I slept 9.5 hours, but poor James, he's been to New York and back.
Poor me.
So what's happening in New York for you? Anything coming up there after this? What's happening to both of you after
Well, James, tell them about your book.
Oh, I have a book coming out in September. I write for young adults. I have a series of young adult books, 2, which makes a series now.
Yes.
And
What are they about, or what are they called?
the first one's called Absolute Brightness, and the one that's coming out in September is called Virgin Territory. And they're about young people who are sort of discovering the world in life in general, and they're wonderful stories that I felt like telling. You know, I started this thing called the Trevor Project.
Well, great. Talk a little bit about it.
Which is the, we operate the only 24-hour suicide prevention helpline for gay and lesbian, transgender, and questioning youth. And so, you know, that's been going for about 13 years. So my interaction with teenagers and just hearing from them and the things that are kind of they're interested in and they're concerned with led me to want to be able to not just hear from them, but also to be able to speak to them. So I started writing those books a few years ago.
So how many calls does the Trevor Project get a day on their hotline?
You know, we get about 30,000 a year, or like about maybe 2,500 a month. And they mostly come from the South and the Midwest. They're not all rescue.
I'm from Mississippi, so I'm sure they do.
And they're not all rescue calls, but you know, what we try to do is to be able to be a lifeline for kids before they get into crisis.
Mm-hmm. And how do they know about it?
You know, we do a lot of outreach. We actually go to schools. Mm-hmm. We make these survival kits available to any school in the country that requests it, which has a kind of curriculum. And we also
see more of that in the South, where they're more open now in the West, or not?
You know, there are difficulties that people don't see right now, which is that kids are coming out younger, and they're not equipped psychologically or emotionally to be able to handle the repercussions of coming out. So we try to be there to fulfill that, you know, that need. And the other thing is that kids often, they see what's happening in the culture, which is very permissive and very like, it's okay to be gay, but it doesn't really match their own personal community experience or their family experience or their church experience. So what's happening is that they feel more kind of despairing because they're not living that life that they see on TV or in the, you know, in the culture. They're living a very repressive, anyway, I could go on and on about that.
So tell people where they can find more information.
It's thetrevorproject.org. We have a big online presence. A lot of kids, most kids find us online. And we have chat rooms for kids, these secure chat rooms. And Trevor Space is a place where kids from all over the country can now go and talk to each other. So even if you're in like Jackson, Mississippi and you don't know anybody, you can actually go to Trevor Space and actually meet kids from all over the country who are gay, who are, you know, 12, 13 years old.
Mm-hmm. So it's hard to end this after that, but I just want to tell you that I saw word of mouth, and I just...
Oh, yeah, well, that Trevor was in that.
Right.
That was where Trevor came from. It was a little section of that.
So talk a little bit about that, because that was one of the best performances I've ever seen on the stage.
Oh,
I just thought.
Thank you. That's so nice. You know, Mike Nichols produced it,
right?
Which was a big sort of.
Just got the AFI award or something. I was watching the other day.
He got the what?
So AFI gave him a special.
Oh, really?
Life Achievement Award.
Oh, that's so great.
Yeah, I watched
He's
it
such a great
day.
guy. And you know, that sort of that moment was sort of a big moment for me because Trevor came out of that, and you know, I got a lot of work out of it, and also I, you know, traveled around the country with that show for a long time afterwards, going from, you know, little theater to little theater, which was kind of, you know, a really great experience and a great way to see the country. But I never made it to Washington.
Isn't that weird?
I know, and this is the first time I've actually spent time in Washington.
If they're listening out there, you know, we should get this here. You know, we should try to get you booked.
I haven't done it in so long.
Would you do it again if I got you in here?
I don't know if I could, darling.
Well, let's finish this, and thanks so much for doing this, because we have a show later. Well, just to tie it back to Legends for a moment.
Yeah, that's what
Mike Nichols. It was Mike Nichols' idea, according to Kirkwood's book, Diary of a Mad Playwright, that two men should do Legends playing the two women. So,
back in 1984 or something like that, right?
Yeah.
Anyways, why should our readers and DC theater goers rush out and buy tickets to see Legends?
It's legendary.
A laugh a minute. It's very light summertime fun. I liken it to pink bubblegum ice cream.
I think it's legendary. I think the story of this play, it has been around since the dawn of the ages, and it just keeps going through all these different incarnations, which I think is really fascinating.
And this version may never happen again. This is, you know, there's been no offer from anyone, and
Mr.
you have to see
too.
it now.
Legends plays through July 11th at Studio Theater, 1501 14th Street in Washington, D.C. For tickets, call 202-332-3300 or go to their website, studiotheater.org.